Welcome to the weekly MindSweep number 210. Manage your mind value. Not worth it is a brain story. 6 weeks I lived inside an idea, not dabbling or tinkering, literally living there. I could see the whole thing clearly in my mind, the arc, the transformation, and the relief it would bring to the right people. I built it like many creative entrepreneurs do, as a complete movie in my head before anything existed in the real world. When I finally hit publish, I didn't feel nervous. I felt ready. This is the thing my audience has been waiting for. Then the numbers came in. 3 sales. Wait, what? And the audacity of the universe to not send me an email explaining what went wrong. There was just a quiet, empty moment where my body sensed something before my mind understood it. And the first story that surfaced wasn't generous. It wasn't even remarkably accurate. It was simple. Welp, that wasn't worth it. Here's what I've learned personally and professionally about value. Value is not logical first. Value does not live in a spreadsheet. Value is not even conscious. Value is a fast, super messy story your nervous system tells about one core question. Is this worth my energy right now? And the human brain loves to conserve energy. For creative entrepreneurs, especially those with ADHD, that story is louder, way more emotional, and much more focused on the present than the future. When something works quickly, our whole body lights up. When something takes time or lands softly, we don't just feel disappointed, we feel misled. And that's where the stories start. Because when my launch only brought in 3 sales, my brain didn't interpret that as an early signal or neutral data. It treated it as a warning. Before I could rationalize anything, my nervous system had already run the math. First, my brain noticed something was off from what I expected. I had already given myself little hits of dopamine while building. Every moment spent imagining, refining, and perfecting brought a quiet sense of reward. My brain started to expect a certain outcome because it felt so likely. When reality didn't meet that expectation, my system flagged it as a threat, not only to my business, but also to my energy. Then it tagged the whole project as high effort, low reward. 6 weeks of work, followed by a quiet response, gets remembered as this costs too much. And our brains are great at holding on to what feels inefficient. ADHD brains especially feel the immediate emotional impact and often overlook long-term possibilities. The disappointment of this didn't land can easily drown out the rational truth that many strong ideas don't land loudly the first time. So, the next time I thought about promoting it again, something subtle happened. I hesitated. I reorganized instead. I scrolled. I suddenly found other things that felt more worth doing. Not because I didn't care, but because unconsciously my nervous system quietly applied the brakes. When we say this isn't worth it, we usually aren't making a statement about the work. We're revealing a momentary internal calculation that sounds internally more like, given how risky, delayed, and emotionally loaded and painful this feels right now, my brain is voting, no. That vote feels authoritative because it arrives fast and confidently, but it isn't the objective truth. It's a snapshot. It's a piece of a much larger puzzle. And your sense of value is not fixed, it's learned. Once we realize that our sense of value is learned, our brain can relearn it. The same parts of the brain that made my project feel not worth it can change. They update with experience. This means you can train your brain to see that aligned work is valuable, even if the reward comes later. Sending consistent emails. Over time, I've come to understand value as a collaboration between 3 systems. First, there's dopamine and expectation. Dopamine doesn't reward effort, it updates your brain's predictions. Every result is compared to what you expected, and that shapes whether the path feels worth repeating. Second, there's time. ADHD brains especially tend to care less about the future. If a reward is unclear or far off, it actually feels less valuable, even if you know it's important. Third, there's a loss and how we frame it. We feel losses more deeply than gains. A failed experiment feels heavier than a small success, even if both teach us the same amount. Put those together, and it becomes clear why so many creative entrepreneurs abandon good ideas too early or double down on the wrong ones out of urgency. So, how do we work with this? Give your nervous system new evidence. And no, this is not about positive thinking. Together, let's take a slow, steady approach to a new practice. Number one, break value into micro wins. Design work so completion happens often and visibly. One email sent, one conversation started, one page finished. Each small finish teaches your brain this path pays off. Number two, pull the future closer. Replace vague goals with near-term signals, not grow my audience, but 5 replies or one real conversation this week. Shorter feedback loops reduce resistance to long-term work. Number three, reframe flops as information. After a launch, ask what you learned about timing, language, or readiness. Data lowers emotional cost, and emotional cost is what your brain remembers. Number four, use loss aversion intentionally. Ask what you lose by not acting. For example, a learning, gaining momentum, and compounding clarity. Your brain responds more strongly to preventing loss than chasing gain. And number five, create real containers. Clear start, clear end, and limited scope. Having clear limits and structure can make something feel more valuable and help you focus, especially for creative brains. Let's go back to that launch and those 3 sales. On my old wiring, my nervous system logged high effort, low return, never again. On rewired wiring, I now pause long enough to choose a different interpretation. 3 real humans said yes. 3 people trusted the promise enough to act. Something sprouted, and it wasn't on my timeline. Hashtag expectation. Instead of abandoning the offer, I chose a smaller next step. One conversation, one refinement, one more round of listening. Same external result, completely different internal learning. Many creative entrepreneurs get stuck trying to understand the market. I still believe we're the ones actually creating the market. When you're hyper focused, time stretches. 6 weeks of work can feel like 6 months of identity. That makes low numbers feel personal. Here's how we can course correct without collapsing our own sense of value. Shift from ego metrics to signal metrics. Separate effort from fit. Define success before launching. 3 to 10 buyers means proof of life, not failure. Talk to the yeses. Interview the people who bought. Listen for their words, their hesitations, and their motivations. That language is where perceived value actually lives. Test the wrapper. Most value is decided before someone even sees what you've built. Title, promise, friction, and emotion. Cost matter more than content depth. Remember, we do not control what others value. Right size the ask. Trust often takes longer than excitement and forced urgency. Smaller yeses build safety before bigger commitments. People need a taste of what you have to offer before they'll buy the whole dozen. Decide in advance not to quit too early. Create a rule. This could look like 3 interactions before your judgment. Change one variable at a time so the data can speak for itself. From the inside, that launch felt like I had mispriced my time and worth. My nervous system read 3 sales as a bad bet. But experience and learning neuroscience has taught me something steadier. Value isn't revealed all at once. It's clarified through iteration. The market rarely hands us a verdict. It whispers clues. And managing your mind isn't about silencing disappointment or forcing optimism. It's about repeatedly teaching your nervous system this truth. The most valuable thing in your business, it's not the big win. It's your willingness to stay in the conversation long enough for your internal sense of value and the market's understanding to meet. That isn't hustle. That's discernment. And it compounds quietly every time you choose not to disappear after the first data point. I have two questions for you this week. Where have you recently said, that wasn't worth it, without realizing you were responding to emotion and not evidence? If value is learned, not fixed, what would you want your brain to relearn next? I'd love for you to reply and share with me. You belong here and I can help. If you're listening to this, you probably know that feeling when your body quietly tells you something isn't worth it. That moment can shape what you build, avoid, price, or leave behind. That's exactly what I help with. I work with creative, heart-centered entrepreneurs, many whom have ADHD or think in unique ways. I help them separate data from self-worth, rethink what feels valuable, and build businesses that reward steady effort, not just bursts of energy. Here's what we can explore together: where your mind might be holding you back, what your body has learned from past launches, pricing choices, or times when results were quieter than expected, how to rebuild trust in your work so that steady long-term effort feels worthwhile. This isn't about working harder or trying to fix yourself. It's about understanding how your mind makes decisions and shaping your business to fit how you naturally work. If you're ready to stop letting a single result change how you see value, I'd love to connect. Let's start with a conversation. There's no pitch and no pressure. We'll simply take a clear, thoughtful look at what's going on beneath the surface and what it might take for your work to feel meaningful again. Book a free consultation to learn how I can support you and your business at checkbookcreative.com. I also want to tell you about Curate a Conversation. If this conversation sparked curiosity, resistance, relief, or a quiet, yes, this is it, you don't have to hold it alone. Curate a Conversation is a weekly live space for thoughtful, heart-centered entrepreneurs to slow down, speak honestly, and explore topics like value without pressure to perform or prove. We gather to listen, reflect, and make sense of what's shaping our business and our decisions together. If you've never joined us, your first month is free. Come and sit in the room. Listen if you want. Speak if you're ready. Stay if it feels like home. We gather Mondays at 8 a.m. You can start with coffee. Belonging is included. You can learn about this all on my website, chickbookcreative.com.